Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here with Gemstars, and we've got my co-host here, Kathy Carlson. But let me tell you, not only that, we've got two very special VIPs. We're interviewing legendary album and 45 designers, Spencer Drate and Judith Salavetz.
Correct.
And let me tell you, these people have got so many honors and awards for their great art. And you can tell us all about that. And we welcome you, Spencer, and we welcome you, Judith, to the show.
Yeah, we're so honored to be on your show and to get exposed, of course, to Australia and a country that we love. And our favorite, by the way,
one of my favorite Australian series is Offspring. You know Offspring?
Yeah, I've heard of Offspring. Yeah, cool.
Love those actors.
I wanted to say that the motto of our life that we had at a Hal Gallery when they did a show on our design life with stories was amazing, is a song called It's a Long Way to the Top by AC/DC, which comes from Australia, that group. It's our favorite group. AC/DC. And I just want to tell you that song is a motto of our life.
We also want to start it off because we're going to be talking about album covers.
Right.
We're not the musicians, we're the graphic designers, the artists. So, you know, what we like to say to people is they don't quite understand that when you listen, this is the quote, when you listen, you see, and when you see, you listen. So, in other words, when you look at the art, it just impacts you more to want to listen, depending on what that art is. And we're the creators of that art that draws you right in.
Yeah, now I'm going to say, these awards that you got, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all this, go through that with us, Spencer.
Yeah, I'll do that. We are very honored, first of all, to design for 23 Rock Hall inductees. We have our own, this is amazing, we have our own private archival collection by the Rock Hall, which you can see our work. We're in the MoMA collection. We've been in MoMA shows. And AIGA interviewed us on AIGA design video, and also we're in their permanent collection. And we've been in many like museum shows and all kinds of things. And I don't know, we won a lot of awards, major design awards. So we kind of have this background that's very different. We've also been I'll tell you how different we are. We've never had an album cover change. Now that's amazing. We've done, I don't know, hundreds of albums, maybe 1,000, but we've never had any design change. So, and we came from really good schools. I had a Yale background in design teaching, and Judith had a good school.
I went to a college here in New York that was, in my time, referred to as the Harvard of the proletariats. Mm-hmm. If you can, appreciate that. And I got my master's in fine arts from there.
First of all, I was just wondering how you, Spencer, and Judith met. I mean, you both live in New York City now, but I wanted to hear a little lowdown on how you guys got together. And was it a success story from the beginning? Did you start designing together, or did it just kind of flow into?
I met Judith at a restaurant called Hornblowers in New York, that my friend Holly Green would have a party all the time periodically. And I met Judith there. She was waitressing. And I'm sitting next to my friend Alan at the table. I said, Alan, I got to meet this woman. There's something about her. She's incredible. She's beautiful. There's something going on. I don't know what it is. And we met, and I saw her work, and I was astounded. And we fell into the throw of our lives just amazingly. And we worked the first album I had to work on with me was Marshall Crenshaw, which won an AIGA award for, they only picked 7 albums in 3 years. And Annie Leibovitz was a judge, by the way. So this was a big album design we won right off the bat. After that, it was like smooth sailing. So that's the story how we met. Judith, do you want to throw anything in there? Or?
Just that it was... I was working at this restaurant in the West Village. It was a really very cool little mini restaurant. Spencer and his gang came in there for brunch. And so that's where we met. It was, we talked and we shared our love of art and graphics, and I showed Spencer some of the things I was working on. I actually never thought I would be designing album covers. That was not on my list of to-do things. I was, I'm a potter, I'm a painter, and those are the things that I thought would bring me into the world, not fame, but what I wanted to do was paint and just create art. But Spencer was crucial in pulling me into designing for music, which we actually have a book that we designed called Designing for Music.
Right.
And the story goes from, it starts there.
I
think what was the
Wow.
year? Not even
1992 was the Designing for Music book, 1992, and we profile top designers all over the world, and some of these designers became famous after the book, like Vaughn Oliver, Malcolm Garrett, John Berg from CBS. I mean, all these names in the book were very prevalent in great design. And so that was, and it also had some special packaging in it, which we always did. We did a big special packaging show in New York, which is a part of, nobody did it. Nobody was involved with special, but we did like articles on it. We did a major show at the One Club. We were interviewed in Smithsonian Magazine. I was on MTV, VH1. The other thing is, this is interesting. I was the first album cover designer after I finished Billy Squier's Don't Say No album to be interviewed on MTV VH1. And Judith was the first woman designer interviewed by She Rocks, a very big women's rock event held every year in LA. So we've had two kind of first things of us
She
in our
Rocks
life.
is mostly for female musicians. They never, I don't think they even considered interviewing a designer, but because, my work is, focused on, rock and roll and just music, I thought, I guess I fit right in.
These are big honors, part of our life, of course, Plastic and Catholic. But, we work together. I think what's really great is we're a man and woman team, and we fill in these voids that, when you work alone, it's totally different. I mean,
by the way, Kathy, being a man and a woman team has its own, in those days, we women had our own problems in being taken seriously. It's a little different today, but back in the days that we were going to these, power meetings with, with these, the Beach Boys and with, all these musicians and managers, and they were only concerned about talking to Spencer. I was just like,
Yeah, but something that's interesting. We worked with Sylvia Reed, who had that life too, because she was always regarded as the wife of Lou Reed, but didn't consider her in the music business to be creative, and she created a lot, and especially with us, and Lou Reed, and the same issues. But I go back in my life where I was in a studio with Bob Antler and Sally Baldwin, and they did a lot of book cover work and a lot of great graphics, and they won a lot of awards. But anyway, the story is the clients would come in and call Bob up. And I remember going into his office and Bob telling him his partner is Sally Baldwin. And he had to tell the client, this is what he said. I never forgot this. He said, look, if you're going to talk to me, you better talk to Sally. So the same thing went on in our life. I mean, it's
that didn't happen. We would go to meetings. And nobody ever looked at me straight, looked at me in the face. Nobody ever paid attention if I were to make a suggestion or, have some idea about a design problem. It was, and when I did ask a question, the responses were not aimed at me. They were directly aimed at Spencer.
Yeah, I think what
These meetings were horrible.
I'll tell you the truth. What went on there, and I'm not defending that because I want women to assert themselves. Unlike you, Judith, I always wanted you to have the best and support. But in those days, I had a portfolio. You see, I came out of Sire, so I had the Ramones, Talking Heads, and they didn't know who you were. They knew you were with me, but they didn't know what you did.
They knew I was the designer along with you.
Yeah, but eventually later, as you start progressing with me and we work together, then that's another ball game.
That didn't happen until Sylvia Reed came on board. Lou Reed's wife, she was the first person who actually ever really took me seriously as a designer and understood where I was coming from, understood the creative flow that was coming from a woman as opposed to a man, and respected that. And after that, you know, things were a lot better for women. But I also want to mention, and I know, Spencer, you're probably, I don't know if you're going to show the cover, but, you know, adding to this conversation about women being ignored, I don't know if you guys know about the Sgt. Pepper's the Sgt. Pepper cover.
Yes, we're going to show that. We're going to show that. So let me go through the cover.
So we'll wait, and we'll discuss what happened with that cover.
When we get to the cover, we'll discuss
it.
But let's go through where the whole part of the concept on this show I thought was really good is to show people what are really good album covers. So we're going to take 3 different parts. I'll show you, first of all, which starts off with my life, and then with my covers, then some of Judith, obviously with Judith and myself, and then other designers and their great work. So if I could start off, I'll start off with the first cover I ever did on Sire Records with a group called Alda Reserve. This was in a lot of shows. Brad Alice was the lead singer. It was a great front and back cover, actually. The photograph in the back is very cool.
That's amazing, Spencer. But I've got to say, while you're showing the covers, both of you were pioneers, and you've got to understand, music touches everyone's lives. Now, everybody buys whatever format comes out, whether that be a CD. The cover is the most important part, the selling point of the band.
Yeah, exactly right.
To be able to get into this field and be pioneers, it's just like, to me, it blows my mind, and this is a riveting interview, because the first thing you do is when you go into a record store or you go into a CD shop, it's visual. You go for what's visual too. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? And good design.
There's a couple of things there. First of all, what makes a great cover, I'm sure Judith will agree, is a combination of very important, great typography. That is the most important. A lot of designers are not really good at that. So you have great typography mixed with a visual plane, either photography or illustration, or even type on the cover. And that equals a great design. That's part of the mixture of what makes great design. So I wanted to show, and also we're into the idea of simplicity. I think that's where it goes. And I know we're into the purity of design. And some designers don't really show that, but we're into doing that. So as you see these covers, you'll notice how simple the design is, but that's like doing a logo. You know, the logo, and what you're talking about, plastic, is right on, because the image of the cover is so important to the musician. And by the way, when people buy records, when they see a great cover, they'll say, wow, if this cover is really good, what the hell is inside this album? You know, that's true of like Talking Heads or any group we're going to show. And you'll see what I mean. So this was like my first cover that I worked with Sire. This was a lot of shows. As I'll go through it quickly. I don't want to spend a lot of time because there's a lot of covers here. But of course, the famous Fear of Music I co-designed with Talking Heads, which was an unbelievable deck plate design by Jerry Harrison's concept and my type area with David Byrne in the group. And it was nominated for a Grammy, by the way, in album packaging in 1980. A great design. Next one, we all know Ramones, Road to Ruin, John Holmstrom artwork on front. And this was a very impactful cover for the group. You know, they started off not selling, literally. And then as their life progressed, sales came in. And of course, they were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The
I got to
next
say,
part-
Spencer, you
Yeah.
can see the type there on it, how great it is, and also how the cartoon characters of the drawing actually, it's like they're stepping out of the album. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, this is the first cover is interesting. It was printed with a silver and 4-color. So and John Holmstrom did the artwork. A person named McDonald did the concept. John fulfilled the artwork. It's a very dynamic cover. I mean, it's like, wow, you know, I mean, when you look at it. The next cover is the only cover the Ramones did without leather jackets, and they wanted a more commercial look. Mick Rock, the famous Mick Rock, took this. And so I started to say, where you put the type? And there's a spot on there on top right. And I said, you know what? The photograph is the thing. I'm going to do simple type. Let the photograph just pop right out. I don't care about the type. It's just, and it really says it. Mick was always a great black and white and color photographer. If you know the work of Mick Rock, who did great work with David Bowie and oh my God, so many great groups, historic groups. So that was that. And then, of course, Billy Squier, multi-platinum album, got me on MTV. This is a raw approach to concept with the raw album. The big thing is the sound. The sound by Reinhold Mack of Queen produced a raw sound that Billy never had before and after this, but Billy on this album had the most incredible songs. He called it his album in quotes. And it really was. There's no album comparable in his life to this album. And I converted a color photograph into a Xerox and typewriter type. So I wanted the raw look. I wanted to make it very raw like the music. And also, you'll see bare feet. Now, Plastic, this is wild. Capitol Records went nuts because he had bare feet. And so, but Billy had control of the album cover, and he said, screw that. This is the cover. This is it, you know? So that was a very dynamic cover of my life. This is a great one. This is Robert Ellis Orrell. Look at the front and back. Great illustration. I worked with Steve Byram. I was the type designer on this, but this got a lot of awards too because of the front and back, you know. And then I always loved this cover. Peter C. Johnson, very simple. And if you can see closely, he's pulling a TV set. You know, he's carrying a TV set. But this guy's a wild musician, you know. And the back. But I love this cover. It's so simple. This cover is a foreign. It was done in Sweden, I think, printed in Sweden or Holland. But I love the cover that I did.
That's amazing too with the space, and that highlights the TV on the floor.
Yeah, and it is a good point. There's a lot to do with the space on the cover, and you don't have to fill it up. It's a beautiful photograph. This is where we start with Judith and me. Marshall Crenshaw won an AIGA award in the cover show in 1983. Color tinting and oil. So it's very bright colors. Judith, you can go into this. This is where you're working with me on the type and color, you know.
Well, I mean, it was just color design, you know, picking out the right matching colors for the cover.
I like the color coming down the middle of the table, and then you've done it on the back there, like it's a runoff from the color of the yellow on the table at the back. Yeah,
this album also was voted in by Roger Black. Roger Black and Annie Leibovitz. You know, these are heavy people that voted this album cover, especially Annie Leibovitz. You know, she thought this was a great cover. When I met her one time, she said, "You guys really did a great cover here." The next one, Judith and I could really go into Joan Jett. I mean, this is a classic in our life. Probably the best cover she ever had. No type on the front, on a shrink wrap, rip it off on a sticker. Lots of photographs, front and back, and then they open it up, and you're in the world of photographs. I mean,
let me tell you, Spencer, what you've shown me so far, you've won my heart with that one. Show me the front again and again. We see the space. How Joan Jett is there with the guitar in action, and it's like you look at it and you go, wow, that's the impact factor right there.
Spencer tells him about the printing that we...
Yeah, Judith could tell you about this.
Well, no, you tell them about that.
Well, you always talk about it, but it's you're right.
So you can't really tell once you're holding...
You can't tell. It's a
but
spot
you hold that album in your hand, you'll see that Joan is she's on a spot lamp, very high, very glossy, and the yellow background is a matte. So it feels like it's almost like a three-dimensional image coming out at you.
Yeah.
That
was the added thing that really made the album. Judith's exactly right. And it's such a
They
dynamic.
turned that into a great poster as well.
Yeah, I got to give, the photograph was by Dieter Zill in Germany, and it's a really iconic cover. I think, and we worked on other covers with her. I think it's the best cover she ever had. Tell you the truth.
And we love it. It's one of our favorites.
I also got to say, I saw the poster and I was blown away with the poster. The poster blew me away as much as the album. That is totally fantastic.
It's
Do you know that we don't have a copy of that poster? And I see it in different places, in different stores I go to, break it out. It's being sold for, how much are they selling that poster for? Like
I don't know. It's like in New York. It's in what's that famous store downtown? John Varvatos has it framed in the back of the store with all the other rock and roll paraphernalia. It just has a great iconic
copy.
Yeah,
we created it.
So this is the famous Bon Jovi cover, which Judith had a big play in. She styled,
my gosh!
Yeah, she styled the group, and
that was my first job as my first and probably last job as a stylist, a clothing stylist. But because they didn't have a stylist, they didn't have anything. They
wonderful.
John Bon Jovi. I mean, the guy came into
I think what's great about this also, Jeffrey Thomas is the photographer, and it's a wraparound photograph, as you notice. This is very interesting. It's not just the front and back. This photo wraps around from front to back, and there's a truck in the back that came accidentally into the picture, and we used it because, if you know about trucks, they're like rock and roll. They have flashing lights in the truck, So that happened just by accident, Plastic and Kathy. And they're in the back of the cover. You see the lights by the truck. And so it's like we planned it, but we didn't. Things sometimes aren't planned, and they became, they make it, right?
Judith, I got to say, I love the type. I love the gold type, the way you've done it with the lettering and the style. It's really great.
Yeah, we did. Judith put the diamond in the middle. Now, this is a classic. They use that diamond in other logos that they used after from her idea. And the thing about it, and also, if you notice in the letters, the background comes through the letters, like this brick background. You can't see it here. And to show movement, we made the type obviously in italic to show movement. Rock and roll movement.
By the way, when John came into our studio,
tell the story.
When we were chosen as the designers, nobody knew who John Bon Jovi was in those days. I mean, he come visit. I mean, he just didn't. He was not recognizable. He came into our studio with a cassette tape of. The band was recording at a. What's the name of the studio, Spencer?
I think the Power Station.
The Power Station, right? Which was John Bon Jovi's cousins.
Right, Tony. Tony owned it.
Yeah. So he came into the studio with a cassette, John, by himself, and said, "This is going to be the single, right?" Is that what he said? Yeah. So Spencer and I have this thing about when we design a cover or design anything, we want to hear the music. We want to hear the sound. We want to have some sort of insight into, what direction is this design going to go. So, so Spencer puts the cassette into the player, and we listen to Runaway. You guys know Runaway, right?
Yep.
So millions of copies. So when John leaves the studio, Spencer and I, we have our little meeting, and Spencer turns to me and says, "You know what, Judith, this is like really bad."
No, wait a minute, Judith. Remember, this is exactly what we said. Judith said to me, "This guy's going to sell 1 million," and I said, "Yeah, right." That's really the word. Yeah, right.
I knew that he was going to be like from the way he looked, so handsome. I mean, he had that Van Halen look. He was like, there's no way. And with that hit that single, my God, I knew this guy was going to be.
You know, I had a different take because when I heard Billy Squier, for instance, all the songs were incredible, no problem. But when I listened to Runaway, it was like, she's a little runaway, da 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 da. But I was totally wrong. I mean, yeah, I can't even tell you. It's like the Beatles came on
and
with
John was amazing. Guys, he would come. In those days, design was not created on a computer. It was paste up and mechanicals.
Right.
And John wanted to be present for practically every moment of that, because that was his first baby.
Right.
That was his first album cover, major album cover. So he would come visit us in the studio pretty much, at least 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. And we had a little sofa in there. And at the time, I had a 3-year-old son who I would bring to the studio with me. And, oh, my God, I wish I had an iPhone in those days, because John would sit on the sofa.
Play with Justin.
He sat on the floor with my son, Justin, while Spencer and I were at our drawing tables, designing his product, his album cover. And John Bon Jovi, I tell my son this story. He had one of the most famous playmates anyone can have. John Bon Jovi would sit on the floor with my son.
I mean, Justin in our life. By the way, Judith, you know this. Justin in our life was the rock and roll kid. He met like Rick Ocasek on the street.
Yeah.
We brought him to a Kiss party. When he was a baby, this kid was gravitated to all the rockers that we worked with. So he was brought up that way. Now he plays guitar.
Before I gave birth, we went to a amazing.
Oh, the Joan Jett with how? Yeah.
I was like not 8.5, 9 months pregnant, and the music was so loud. I'm sure that he heard it He heard it.
He heard the music in her stomach. I'm telling you, he heard the music.
But I thought that was it's so sweet that he played with my son while we were busy working, designing his album cover, which brought him fame.
Yeah, so now
these are amazing stories, and I love the banter between you two, and the way you tell the story. I can tell, like, Spencer likes to be the man up front, and that you're there, but then you like to have your say, and then Spencer wants you to talk. I love it. I love the banter, and you guys have come such a long way. You can see that you people know each other inside out.
Our song is "It's a Long Way to the Top" by AC/DC from Australia. So I got to tell you, we're Australia here. I mean, this show is Australia. Let me tell you, our rock and roll life is ingrained with Australia in some way. So we love being on here. I'll go to the next. This is where we start working with Sylvia Reed. Waring Abbott, the photographer, turned us on to working with Lou. Sylvia comes into our office, and it was love at first design. All 3 of us were dynamic designers. We all worked smoothly. Lou never changed a thing. The New York album, a classic, right? Dirty Boulevard, right? Plastic. I mean, this is like made his life. This is the big turning point of his life. Seymour Stein at Sire signed him, and this album is dynamic in his life, in the life of Lou Reed. And the way I designed it was we had Lou is dressed in different garb there, you see, thrown together, and at the top, I did the type and outline. Now, it sounds simple, but a lot of designers would do that. Why I picked the outline type is so I could bring the type in a big size, but the background coming through doesn't make the type like blow your mind, just come out and just dominate, So that's a big reason why I use outline type. But the original photograph, Judith, right? You know more about it. It's like an old photograph.
Sylvia came to us with this photograph that was taken. It was an anonymous. We don't know the name of the photographer, but it was during the 30s, I think. These men that were standing in a food, I think some sort of a food.
No, it's an alley. It's men. I remember we saw it at the Met, and underneath it says "Men in an Alley," like a men in an alley. In an alley.
Yeah. So then, we all got together, our heads working as to how to depict this, and we came up with having Lou be one of the, each and every one of those individual men that were in that original photograph, only where the photographer, which, had to take the photograph of Lou in those various positions. And
Yeah,
then
Lou,
it was
Lou
shot
like
together.
yeah, Lou initiated liking the photograph. Sylvia brought to Waring carried it out, and we actually I was on computer in those days, the early days of computer. I was trying to get the light right, put the figures together right. Warner Brothers called me up and said, "Stop it, Spencer! You're spending too much money." But I had to get the figures right together, and I had to look at it. It was a long job, but
I love that.
great cover, and if you can't see it, but there's a slight green and black. It's a slight.
I see it, Spencer. But I ask you now, we've seen the cover. What's your favorite song on that album? Come on,
Dirty Boulevard, without a doubt.
That's my favorite.
Kathy, ask him something about that album. That's iconic.
Well,
Okay, so you. What's that?
There's another Lou Reed cover coming, so you could,
Well, the
there
second
is?
one.
yeah.
Well, this is
What
this
was
is
on
a
the back?
beautiful.
What was on the back of that one? The one you
What?
just had. Was there anything
What?
on the
Lou
back of
Reed.
the other?
We'll go
The
back
Lou
on
Reed-
that. I'll leave
The
it.
Lou Reed
The
album.
black, no, the
Was there
black,
anything
no,
on
the
the
back, no, there's nothing really on the back. It's not, it's type and a brick wall. I don't want to really show that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not really.
It's the
But
wall.
I'd rather get into the next cover,
Okay,
which is
sure.
very dynamic. Magic and Lost, big album for Lou. The photograph by Louis Jamais in Paris. Judith had a big play in this album with Sylvia. Alchemy symbols. Judith, tell them the story about
Well,
this.
First it was originally intended primarily to be the themes were about magic. I don't know if you know do you guys know the story behind the album Magic and Loss? So at the time, I think Lou had lost two of his dear friends, so it turned into the loss. And the photographer, Spencer, was
Louis Jamais. Louis Jamais.
Right, he photographed it, and we put these symbols in each of the corners. The symbols each symbol had something very meaningful in terms of the magic and the loss, and they were all picked out with
Sylvia and you.
Sylvia and I picked out the images, the icons that went to the corners. But it was an interesting, the symbols were so, when he went on tour, these symbols, Sylvia asked me if I would paint the symbols onto a glass slide so that they can, so that they could show the symbols on stage.
Yeah.
So that's that, I did that, and I'm probably going to die
And
from
they did
that. Yeah, because I painted, even with wearing masks, you had to
Oh God, yeah.
use a special paint that was very, wouldn't melt with the high heat from the lamps that would project it onto the stage. So I painted these glass slides with all those symbols. But what was really a mind blower for me, even though, we did the cover, when we went to the show, they projected these symbols that I painted. I was like, whoa, those were like onto the stage, like they were like 40 feet, 40 by 40 feet. It was, like awesome, but so it was worth it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're at I look at the photograph, the treatment by Louis Jamais. This is not Photoshop. He treated this in the development of this photograph with a special technique, but it's really a piece of art. I mean, this photograph is not just a photograph, it's a piece of art. And Louis Jamais, if you know his work, he did many things in this like this. If you see his work, it's gorgeous and stuff. But anyway,
I've got to say, these albums that you show me, this is where the nitty-gritty is that people don't understand. Every album really is a piece of art, and painstakingly takes time and effort thinking of the design, how it's going to work, what gives the major impact, what sort of quality and what are you trying to project through the album to the listener and the buyer. because
Right,
it
right.
runs one with the other.
I mean, the whole purpose.
Well, the album,
Yeah,
the cover of the album sends whatever image you have on the cover sends its own message to the
Should I show
viewer.
you the?
And
Should I see
before
a
they
message?
even hear the music, there's a message being
Do you
sent.
see the message on this album cover? Do you see
Oh my
the
God.
message?
I see the V.
I
It's
see the V.
obvious.
So this group was Friends of the Scorpions. By the way,
I don't think the women's movement would like me very much after finding out that I came up with that
Hey,
concept.
can you do me a favor, Spencer? Can you turn that upside down? I'm just curious what it looks like.
I
on that end.
mean, what happened here? First of all, Jeffrey Thomas did the photograph. We got to give him credit. He did Bon Jovi with us, and sort of a Helmut Newton style. If you know Helmut Newton and his sex photographs a lot with women and S&M, whatever. So that's the type of photograph it was.
So wait a minute, before you say anything more, Spencer, I have a question for our hosts. What kind of music do you know the band Victory? That's number one. Do you know who they are?
I haven't heard of Victory, no.
Okay, so not hearing of them, not knowing what kind of music, by looking at that cover, what message does that send? Does that image send to you in terms of what might be on the inside of that album cover? Of that album, the kind of music that you're about to be introduced to.
A lot of loving going on. A lot of loving. Hard rock.
I'm going for heavy rock and roll.
That's it.
I'm going for a lot of heavy rock and roll.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's
not going to be a folk album.
That's
It's
it.
not going to be a folk album. This is going to be.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Spencer,
Yeah.
that's no Christmas album there.
It's not Joni Mitchell, that's for sure.
And whenever, by the way, whenever we were interviewed in magazines or anything in different countries, they wanted this, or books, they wanted this album cover in our life. They wanted to show this wherever we were profiled. This was the cover that everybody wanted in profiling. And I have a Japanese magazine that has this cover in it. They wanted this cover, or a book. There are books with this cover in our life. This is a very big type of thing. And all of a sudden you get printed because CBS had a censorship thing and they felt they almost didn't print it. They did eventually, but they had a big trip with this cover, whether to print it or not. That's how controversial this cover was at that time.
And
I don't know if you've noticed this, Spencer.
Coming from
Spencer, if you show that album one more time, just show the album for a minute. I want to say something.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Now, if you notice something, if you see her feet, she's like a ballet dancer where her feet are like sort of expanded to make the perfect V. It's not like her feet are anywhere, but her feet are like at the perfect angle with her leg to make the V. It's like very specific.
Well,
it's not just something you just do.
And not only that, I'll tell you the other part of it. Notice there's no song title. It's just the name of the group. So therefore, if I had a song title, this would have screwed up the whole cover. If there was a song title, it would have screwed up the cover. But being it's just their name, I could letter space it across very simply.
Exactly.
The photograph is what it is. It makes it perfect with the elements. You're right. I mean, it's like Fear of Music, the type and the deck plate. It's like simplicity rules. Simplicity.
Can I say something?
Rules.
If their name was bigger, if their name Spencer was longer than Victory, you would have had a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another point. I mean, you fall into things not knowing, right? And the elements just work out. It's amazing. This is a perfect example of that. The next album, I got to show you. This album, Bob Gruen turned this onto, and it's his photographs, front and back. Because when I got all the photographs, I said to myself, wait a minute. I've got to put these photographs on here. Not a front and back one photo. I'm going to put a bunch of these on because Bob Gruen was so good at black and white. And so this is the hip hop album. Judith had a big play on the logo at the top.
Well, unfortunately, that album did not do very well. It didn't. No. Was not a very good big seller. But the logo, it was interesting how that came about. Spencer and I were having dinner in some outdoor restaurant in the East Village one day, and the restaurant had that type on it, and it was in neon. And I saw that, and I said, "There's our font for Dee Dee's cover, Dee Dee King's cover." And
Yeah, so
that came bad. I just thought it was like it was the restaurant that we hated.
Yeah, and Pat Kernan, who worked a lot with us on WCBS graphics, which were outrageous. That's another story. Pat Kernan did the logo and fulfilled the concept of Judith. And then the photographs, like I said, really make this cover. The group of photographs, I thought. And, notice how they're looking different directions. And there's one on the left looking at the title above, which is really great. And then
I like the pink. I like the pink running through it. It gives it a very cool feel.
Yep. Yeah, the pink, definitely great. Yeah, the pink feel. So that's the sum up of some of our covers with Judith and with Judith and me alone. But now I'll go into other great designers covers, which we've all have seen, I'm sure. And by the way, these covers are in two venues: the Art of Vinyl cover show on YouTube that we curated, and also in the HD TV series, 10-episode series on best music packaging. These covers are in. So these are all about a learning tool. And so now we're doing that, showing you. So this is the famous Talking Heads Speaking in Tongues, which David Byrne did the artwork and M & Company did the graphics. And we like this cover. And also notice the type. It's not spaced evenly. The type is a type treatment that's really great design. It's uneven placement and spacing, and it works with the artwork. We thought, David Byrne did the artwork. And so then we go into here we go, the famous Led Zeppelin, the first one. George Hardy designed it, right? So we know about this, but this is like an iconic cover. And one thing about Zeppelin, they didn't have their pictures on the front, if you know their series of covers, right? Plastic, they were just, they had artwork or something really cool. And they worked with hypnosis a lot. And that was another thing in England. And they had great covers. I love this cover, the first one.
Totally agree. But I just want to say the fact that it's Zeppelin and they've got a Zeppelin on the cover.
Yeah.
They're putting the name out, first of all, before the faces.
That's right. Exactly right. So this we know about. Sticky Fingers. I mean, this is a classic.
I love it.
Yeah.
Has it got the zip on it?
That's a good story too. This is flat. But on the original cover, I wrote an article on it. They did the zipper, literally pasted it on. And then it was packed in the boxes for the record stores that got destroyed because the zipper was a three-dimensional, It was on a surface and it wasn't flat. So it destroyed the covers above it. So they were ready to sue Warhol. It's a great story. Atlantic was ready to sue Warhol. Because they said, "What? You're destroying all our covers." So then they had to print flat. Like this is flat. That's a good thing you brought up, though, because it leads into that great story.
Well, that's a great story because I thought they still sold the zipper ones.
No, flat.
Hey, I've got to say something, Spencer. Did Levi Strauss buy a few copies of those, or did they provide the zips?
That's a good one. I love that.
Should have gotten on board with that one.
This one's great. Sonic Youth. This was in a MoMA show. I had 45 sleeves I did with Talking Heads called Take Me to the River, a beautiful sleeve. And this cover was in that show at MoMA in 2010. And, Sonic Youth. And the picture is interesting. It's this boy and girl were involved in a murder. They were involved in a murder. And this is a sketch of them. A lot of people don't know that. It's a great story. I mean, there's a whole story about this couple. It's a great cover.
Of all the art pieces that you're seeing, all the albums, which one stands out for you in your mind?
Well, I'm sure Judith agrees. There's too many. I mean, it's like there's a book series called Album Cover Album by Roger Dean and Aubrey Powell, and Vaughn Oliver was involved, and it had our Joan Jett cover it. But that series was 6 books, and all the covers were phenomenal. And this is 100 Best Album Cover book by Storm. When you look at this book, it's hard to say, what are your favorites? Because there's so many. I'm giving you just a taste, literally. We're showing the amount here. And this is just a taste. But it's hard to say because look at this cover, for instance. This is a very dynamic cover by Ultra Vivid Scene. Look at that cover. That's a dynamic
Is that a toothbrush
cover.
in the front?
Well, you have toothbrush and you have and they photographed it with real masking tape because you can see the grain on it. But look at that cover. So like, as I go through this, think about how great these covers are. And it's hard to pick what your favorites are. I mean, I'm beyond this. I'm beyond what I'm showing here. I have got covers that are amazing. I'm not even showing. So
I got to say something. Out of everything I've seen, the one I really love, have a guess, Spencer. Of all the albums you've seen, there's one that still stands out. And I'll tell you, the Ramones one does. The one I really love, it's easy to pick. Which one do you reckon I went for?
Yeah, I mean, I love her music. I love Martha Crenshaw.
That's right. That's the one.
I knew it. I knew it. What am I winning? I win something.
Judith's going to talk about this album because Judith's evolved.
Well, I mean, that's what everybody knows Sgt. Pepper's. So that was created. That cover was created by Peter Blake. Peter Blake was given the design credit for a very long time, and that's where I was telling you in the beginning of the show how he was not alone in designing that cover. That cover was designed by Peter Blake and Jan Haworth, who was his wife at the time. She never got credit. Meanwhile, it's very interesting how that cover was created. I mean, it was their full-size cardboard cutout pieces, all those people. And at the time, Peter's wife, Jan, was she's probably still an artist, but she worked in that medium. She designed these full-size cardboard pieces of people, and so she brought it to this cover. So what I wanted to say is that she was left out of, the credits for a very long time, and I don't know who brought her back in, but I talk about that all the time because I relate to that. I relate to being left out because of being a woman. The attention was always, placed on Peter, and he was. I think they even knighted. Did they knight Peter? Sir
Probably,
Peter?
yeah.
I think he did.
I just want to say this, if I can. I want to tell you a little bit about the cover. You may or may not know. All right?
Okay. Oh, good.
Now, what happens is the Beatles had a lot of input in this cover, and I'll tell you why and where. Now, if you see that drum head, you see the drum in the middle there?
Yes.
If you get a mirror, a little piece of glass that's like a mirror, and you put it in the middle of that, those words in the middle say, "I who die."
What do they say?
They reflect off the drum.
I who die.
And it says, "I who die." Right? Now, not only that, all those faces are supposed to be all of the Beatles' idols, all the faces.
Right.
And what they did is, even Hitler, they had a picture of Hitler.
Right. John Lennon.
Not that he was an idol,
Right.
but they might have just wanted to put him in or something.
Yeah.
And they had Gandhi, and they had ones that they had so much trouble with that they even wrote to someone to ask permission to put their faces. And can I say this, Spencer? Turn it over. That is the first time that a full album of lyrics have been put on the back of the cover. And if you see, Paul is facing opposite to all the Beatles, and that's because George Harrison with his finger is actually pointing at the words at 6 o'clock. And that's supposed to be the time that Paul was killed in a car accident. You have a look there, Spencer, at George's finger and what it says.
Oh, my
and it
God.
says at 6 o'clock.
That's great story,
Oh, my
Classic.
gosh.
I mean, that is really great
it's
stuff.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about the Adolf Hitler thing. John Lennon wanted to put Adolf Hitler in it. Of course, that would be a no-go. That would be a no-go right away. But
Exactly. But also the flowers in the front there, It's supposed to be in the shape of his base. The yellow flowers there,
Yeah.
that's meant to be Paul's base.
Oh,
So if
okay.
everyone goes online, they can see the clues. And basically, if you've got the early Beatles on one side,
Right.
and they've left that image, and they based the Sgt. Pepper album, I'll tell you where they got the name Sgt. Pepper.
Oh, tell
Paul
us.
McCartney was on a table with Mal Evans, and he said, "Can you pass the salt and pepper?" And Paul McCartney heard the word Sgt. Pepper. That's where he
Wow.
got the name
That's
of the
a
album.
great story. That is a great story.
And do you know if there's any reason why the military uniform-like look to their
Well, I got to explain it. They
costume?
based it. They wanted something that was very, very English. So what they wanted to do is, in the past, there used to be big parks where they had these verandas like these pergolas where the band used to play on a Sunday and all these people used to be outside. They based it on that they wanted to be these kind of bands that played on a Sunday in the parks under those pergolas, because that's what used to be. And they wanted that very English look from the past, and that's where they got it. And also Paul McCartney is wearing his blue jacket. And I've got to tell you, there's a Canadian badge which says QPD or whatever. It's supposed to stand for the Quebec police or whatever it is, but people take it as pronounced dead, that symbol means officially pronounced dead or something. It's on the net, but that's the story for that.
Oh, that's a great, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. That's a great one. I got to tell you
what I'm trying to say is, it's not a plain album. For all those clues to be in there, they've sat down and worked out what they want and what each part is going to do. And as I said, Spencer, do me a favor, turn it over, have a look at George Harrison's finger, and he's pointing at the word at 6 o'clock.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Did not know all of that information. That's amazing. Oh, wow.
It's amazing, but the album's amazing too. But I heard that they weren't paid a lot to design and do the album.
Yeah, there wasn't. You're exactly right. They were not paid a lot. That's a big thing. Yeah, I heard that one too. But let's go on. The next one is our favorite, Vaughan Oliver, one of the great designers in England, who a VA, a record company designer, and he had great graphics for the Pixies. He was in our first book, Designing for Music. Judith and I idolized this guy. He passed away this past year, unfortunately. One of the great designers of our time, album designers, without a doubt. And this is like, also, it's printed on a matte finish. That adds to the feeling of it. So that's another thing you get into as a designer. What kind of board you want to use, glossy or matte? Like the famous album cover, Crosby, Stills and Nash by Henry Dilt's photograph. That's on a matte finish, so you have this low-key folk album. You're going to have this folk feeling on a matte. You don't want to use glossy. So there's things like that come up. This is
and they used the color brown a lot.
Yeah, this is you're right. And also this is Anton Corbijn. I call him a photo painter. He worked a lot on the U2 covers, if you know. I worked on Achtung Baby with his photographs. This is, the inner sleeve was great. I mean, you open it up, you get this beautiful photograph, with pictures on the bottom. But he's an iconic photographer, Anton Corbijn. And I love his work. And I'm so proud to work on Achtung Baby with the original designer in Dublin. Anyway, that's a story. But I thought this cover is really beautiful. It's sort of out of focus. It's got one line of type, and it's a very eye-catching, beautiful, like portrait style, right? Plastic,
I agree. I like it. It's like a painting, exactly.
Yeah, this one, Joseph Arthur, one of our favorite guys, we designed a beautiful letterpress package for him on CD, gorgeous, that Judith worked on big time. And anyway, he sent me this cover, and I said, Joseph, no type on the front. So he put it on the back. And this is a beautiful, like sepia tone photograph. You know,
I just got one question about that cover, Spencer.
Yeah.
Now, the front cover and the back cover, because they're both great, if you turn it around to the back, you could think that that's the front cover of the record.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. And Joseph was, if you don't know it, he was an artist, and we repped him for a couple of years. So he's an incredible painter. He would paint on the stage, for instance. He would do a performance and paint on the stage. And but he was a great painter. So a lot of his covers have this incredible artwork involved, as Judith knows, on the letterpress package. Beautiful letterpress package we did for him. But we're just doing albums now. We're just doing albums. But this is, we know about this one, don't we, people?
Pink Floyd?
Yeah. No type on the front again. No type on the front, just on the back. Which I always, you know, this is what it's all about. You know, musicians, they don't know about artwork. A lot of people, they do a lot of their stuff. They just put a picture of themselves. They put some stupid type. They have no concept of, you know, how to do a really great cover. You don't need a picture on you can have a dynamic picture on the front, and on the back you put your title. Gonna flip it over anyway in a vinyl, but people don't even understand that, as simple as it sounds, which is ridiculous. And this one, oh my God, this is great. Afghan wigs. This is a highly illustrated cover. A great group, but I love where they're coming from. You know, their illustration, dark feeling, very dark, you know. And the last, this is the next to the last, this is the famous Vargas cover, the Cars.
Yeah, that's a great one. Has that got Candy-O on it?
I believe, let's see, Candy-O, does it? Yes. But just no type on the front, just this great illustration, like a Playboy, right, Judith?
I'd buy that one. That's a Marilyn Monroe there.
Yeah. I mean, I love this cover. And I'll end it off with one of the great ones, Robert Rauschenberg, Speaking in Tongues, limited edition, Grammy Award winning cover, Grammy Award winner. And this has multiple things going on the inside. If I open up, everything will fall out, but there's different multiple layers of color with a record. It won a Grammy. And you know what? This is the catch. When we interviewed Chris Franz, remember Plastic? He said that
exactly.
Oscar Myers, right, did the package when we interviewed Chris Franz, when you had him on his show. I mean, this is one of my favorites.
That.
Yeah.
Ben, so I just got to say, from memory, what happens is that's a clear plastic, but with time it goes yellow. That's correct, isn't it?
This has gone yellow too.
Oh, that's right.
This is gone, but big deal. You know, after a while, big deal. Because you're actually
like it's like gold.
Yeah, but don't forget
it's aging very well.
Yeah, but this doesn't matter because you're opening it up. And then when you open it up, you get everything okay, you know, the color-wise. So it's actually the cover. But, you know, it does play. It does play, the discoloration.
Spencer, this journey with all the art that you've shown us, yourself and Judith, has been amazing because you've told everybody out there that a design and an album is not as simple as people may think. It's not a slap put together job. There's a lot of thought goes into it. There's a lot of preparation goes into it. There's a lot of color scheming and picking and whether the quality of the paper, what it's going to be, plain, matte, gloss,
right.
What photography you want, what images the people want to portray. And as I said to you, you're forerunners and pioneers in this industry, and you know what gives the best perspective and selling points for a band. I mean, you can be so arty, but it's not only the art part. It's actually the song part. It's about getting there to that point of being a great band, but everyone has to start from somewhere. And when they've got the right design, they've got a head start. And what I'm saying is your expertise helps them a lot.
Oh, thank you. And I want to go further than that. which will lead into what I'm going to say now is we have an HDTV 10-episode series on best music packaging. It's on YouTube. But the second one we just finished is an HDTV series of famous music designers. So you're getting top music designers. Me and Judith are in it with a whole bunch of incredible music designers that won awards like Lawrence Azarad and Carlos Segura. These names are prominent. And this is a whole series as a learning tool. But that it's what you just talked about. It's all these designers talking about their covers. Rob O'Connor, Stylo Rouge. Roger Dean's on it. Roger Dean, who did Asia and all this. But it's like you've got a great learning tool collection of looking at great designers, the approach they did. And so it's exactly what you're talking about. That's
now, Spencer, we got a worldwide something here. It's a worldwide exclusive, and I want you to go right through this. Judith and Spencer, tell us all about that.
Well, this is our new
cover.
We're back.
Oh
I'm going to start off with we're back. Judith and I finished this vinyl for an artist named Keith Cook. Album called Rock and Roll Riot. It's going to be released in the fall by Riot Records, which ironically is in Australia. and the album cover, we approached artwork by Keith Carter. Simple concept. Now, this is what makes it interesting. This is a simple concept, but it was never on an album cover. So you'd think, well, maybe I saw this before, but it never was on an album cover. And it's dynamic. And it says what's inside the album. This guy is freaking out. And the music is hard rock. So you're getting like Nirvana, you're getting alternative, you're getting some Iggy Pop stuff in here. You're getting a lot of hard rock. But the album cover says what it is. It's a beautiful package. We're involved with myself, Judith, and her son, Justin, is part of that design team. And
nice.
It's being released in the fall, and we'll have the artist on this show.
Yeah, I think
we'll have the artist on this show and how we did the album.
If I may, Spencer, with that cover, that visual, you get the mood of the music that's inside.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's electric, but let me tell you, that image now has gone away from the screen. But I can tell you, it's embedded in your head.
That's what we like. Well, yeah, and the other thing is there's no type on the front. It's on a sticker, just like the Joan Jett. So you rip it off, you're left with his artwork, front and back. There's another image on the back, and then we have a one sheet with great graphics. So we have a color record, a green record, which goes along with the green art, black, white, and green art. So it's a beautiful package, and we're very happy with it. And
we decided, if you remember, we decided not to put type on the cover because, if you well know, as you well know, typography and type it emits emotions. When you look at, different styles of type, you feel in different ways. Like, for example, if you're reading a newspaper, you don't want to see comic type in a newspaper because then, it's so with this, we felt it was enough to have the visual, the image that will, if we had put type with the image, it would have complicated it. It wouldn't have been as pure and it wouldn't have been as powerful. It would have like distilled.
Yeah, the artwork dominates
the cover.
Yeah, what Judith is saying is right. And the art really says, don't put anything on me. It's all the artwork, right?
But Judith and Spencer, do you see my background?
Yeah,
green and black.
I love it.
Right, that's it. That's done in honor. That's done in honor of that cover. Just so you know,
right? Perfect. I love it. I want that. Where did you get that back?
I'm going to send this link over to Keith Cook, the artist, when I get it, to tell you the artist involved. So he'll love it. But this is the first time on a show we're showing it. So this is a big show for us.
We appreciate it. And I also want you to do me a favor. I want you to go through all your links for us, please. So everyone can go up, look where you are. You've got your website as well. On Facebook, you've got everything there. Just go through what you got.
Yeah, I want to bring up something. We're on a site called Visura, Visura. So if you go to Drate Salavetz, Drate Salavetz .visura.co, you'll see like our work and our biography, and you can send a message to us. It's a beautiful little site. It's not designed out like craziness. It's just simple. Our covers, bio, and that. And we're on Facebook also. And we have a site, Drate Salavetz site, Spencer Drate Judith Salavetz site on Facebook. And of course, we have our own personal site on Facebook. But that's the place to go, Visura, if you want to see our work, you know.
You've also got the other thing about vinyl. Tell us about that, where they can go and see.
Yeah,
beautiful.
We're part of the Making Vinyl event, founded by Brian Eckes and Larry Jaffe every year, and it's a sold-out event every year. It's been held in Detroit. It's been held in Europe, and speakers like Jack White and little Stephen Van Zandt and Michael Kurtz of Record Store Days have spoken there. And, you know, Jack White's a big vinyl freak. But anyway, that event is held every year called Making Vinyl. You can go on makingvinyl.com and you'll see things about it. We're a judge every year in that area. Album packaging awards are given out. Over 250 entries this past year with amazing graphics, amazing packaging. Not simple front and back. We're talking about color records, die cuts. We're talking about intricate packaging. So it's coming back. And I've been a Grammy judge 6 times in the Grammy area, album packaging, which is, I hear I was the most in years, more than any other judge. That's an honor. But but you see the vinyl coming in, Plastic and Kathy, every year, more vinyl being entered. So you get the idea in 45s and LPs that vinyl is on. It's been on resurgence for a number of years, by the way, but it's a big thing with us. And we have a site called Vinyl Talk on Facebook.
That's the one.
Vinyl Talk. So you talk vinyl. It says support of the vinyl resurgence, and we talk vinyl. You know, and so that's the other part of our life. Plus the HDTV show coming up in the fall. Judith and I and Patrick Bambarak, who's part of HDTV, we're doing a show starting in the fall. We're going to have you on. We're going to have Pat Plastic on and Kathy. One show we're going to do. And we're going to have other people, interesting people like Keith Roth, who has a rock and roll station, and musicians and, photographers.
Movie makers, film directors, actors.
Yeah, we're going to do that. And by the way, Judith's daughter is becoming a famous actress. She's doing a movie. She's on Netflix. Marvelous Maisel's coming up. She's going to have a small bit thing in there coming up. She's hot. Judith's daughter's hot. And Justin, her son, designed that vinyl package coming out with us. And he's a film editor on the side and does a lot of computer work. He's amazing. So both the kids, Judith's kids, are amazing. Justin and Ariel.
Spencer, I've got to ask you now, the virtual place where you go to that studio and you see the albums and you're able to virtually go to each aisle, that's what, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame one, is it?
Yeah, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they're actually, now is a time where they're actually silent. They're upgrading their whole system. So what's going on is a couple of packages that we've done. We have things in there already, but there's going to be additions to that. It's good to see it in the future because we're adding things to it. I've already talked to them about that. And that'll be at least 6 months, believe it or not. They're revamping the whole Rock Hall system. So they're in a silent period, so people can't enter now. Like people could donate albums, they can't do that now. It's all, but we're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame archival. We have our own little place. We have covers in there already, but there's going to be add-ons to that. So that's, I would say, really to go into it after about 6 months, and then you'll see all our work, really. And that cover we just finished is going to go in because that's really good. So that's a big, that's a big thing too. But if you go on, for instance, if you go on the internet, search out the MoMA collection and my name, you'll see me there with our stuff. AIGA collection, we're in there. We have 3 pieces in the AIGA collection. You know, so we're all over the place on search. You know, I'll start off with let's just show the 545 book. That's really a great book, 2010. 500, obviously 45s, and Lenny Kay, Patti Smith Group wrote the forward, and the book is phenomenal. It's left to right as you go through the book. It works as a left to right layout. So whatever's on the left side works with whatever's on the right. And
the way we did that, if I may,
yeah, go ahead, Judith.
is that you're looking at two images and two 45s, and the one on the left and then the one on the right. It's like a game that people can play. You look at it and say, what are the differences or what are the similarities between the two? Because each image, there's some similarity on the left and that corresponds to the image on the right, like whether it's a color that was used in the design or whether it was the manner in which the type is, the position, or whether it was just, you just have heads on it, so you have heads on. So it's really a fun book to go through, and after a while you realize that there are similarities. There's this guy on the right side is wearing a blue jacket, and on the left side the girl's wearing a blue jacket. So it's really a cool little book to look through.
Yeah, it's the first book we did was in 2002 called 45 RPM, which is a smaller model, but that sold out with no promotion. And by the way, the publishers didn't want to print it. This is like the Beatles story. The LP books were coming out left and right. No book on a 45 record sleeve. Hello, I bring it up. All of them turned it down. Then, of course, after that sold with no promotion, and all the labels wanted it. Like all the publishers, of course, those publishers that turned it down because of the sale wanted. But, it's crazy. I mean, an idea like that is so dynamic. I mean, you're doing LP books left and right for so many years. Nobody did it. And after I did that 45 book, other people were doing 45 books in Europe and the United States. But my book set the trend for that. It's an interesting story. That story is really interesting.
Is it available? Is it available, Spencer?
Yeah, go on
for people to
Amazon.
buy?
Amazon. I would go on Amazon.
I don't think there are any reprints on it, unfortunately.
Well, you got it on Amazon. You got these books on Amazon now.
No, there aren't. The Punk magazine. Do you have a copy of that or no? We'll have it later.
Well, Punk Globe was an online magazine. I contributed a lot of articles in pop culture, like articles on Zach Starkey, Gringo's Son, article, Chris Stein, articles on film. Andres Newman, who did the Iggy Pop movie with Iggy Pop movie called American Valhalla, great film. And on Twisted Sister movie, the director, Alec Horn. So I would do articles in pop culture, contribute to the magazine. Nikki Palomino wrote these articles with me. And so these are dynamic articles. So I'm not active in that now, but I have articles I've done for them. They're amazing articles, really amazing articles. I'm just not active in it. I got too much other stuff going on with the new HD show with me and Judith. That's coming out in the fall once a month.
You guys are so busy, but as I said, we want to thank you for being on the show with us today on Gemstars.
Hey, we love you guys.
Thank you so much.